I'll just start taking topics one by one. So the first is battery life. Android went over some of the stats of where is the battery going and why is the battery of Android so bad, right? After a lot of complaints. And they collected stats and they came to some very surprising conclusions. So the first thing that they saw was this. Let's say you have some network connectivity change. Let's say you have an app which has to do some network processing. Let's say you have an app which is regularly uploading some data to a server, right? So if you want to do that in Android, then how do you do it? You register for a broadcast called on network connectivity changed, right? And then as soon as, let's say your phone comes to Wi-Fi, you say, okay, now it is on Wi-Fi. So now let me upload whatever data I have to upload. And now if your phone is switching from Wi-Fi to no network or to data, then your app will again get a broadcast. Then you will see that, okay, the network has switched from Wi-Fi to phone data. So I should stop these heavy uploads. Otherwise, the user will incur high amounts of cost, right? So that is how network connectivity change used to be handled. But Android saw some behavior here. So let's say you have many apps on your phone. You have one expense tracking app, and you have Splitwise, and you have some newspaper app. So as soon as you are walking in an airport, and let's say as soon as you caught a Wi-Fi network, then what it will do is it will send that broadcast that network connectivity changed. And it will send that broadcast to all the apps who are listening to that broadcast, right? So then what will happen? Your phone is not being used. 100 apps will wake up. They will say, I got this broadcast. Do I do anything with this network connectivity change? No, it is not relevant to me right now. I don't have anything to upload. Or if you have switched from Wi-Fi to data, then I don't want to upload. So it will wake up. It will see, okay, it is useless. It will go back to sleep. Same with next app, same with next app. So 100 apps wake up. They see that there is no use. They go back to sleep. Then in the airport, suddenly you reach an area where even your signal is weak or your data is not coming. Again, you get that broadcast, you realize it is useless, and go back to sleep. So then if you are going through a very varied network connection area, your phone battery would just start getting exhausted within minutes, right? So this was one area where Android realized that there is just so much battery wastage and for no use. And then there were similar to other broadcasts. One was Action New Picture. So there are some apps which want you to upload your photo, like Google Photos app or Facebook. Or if you have clicked any photo, they ask you if you want to upload it or take a backup, right? And same with new video. So the same thing happens. You get a broadcast, 100 apps wake up, they say, okay, I am not interested in this photo at all. They go back to sleep, right? So then these broadcasts would kill the, end up killing the battery. So the first and most important change with Android N is that you will stop getting these broadcasts completely. Until and unless your phone is in the foreground, you will not get these three broadcasts. So if there is a network connectivity change, you don't get the broadcast. This is only true for broadcast receivers that are registered through XML and are implicit broadcast. So if your broadcast is explicit and you have mentioned the broadcast has the package of your app mentioned or the activity mentioned, you will still get it. But if the broadcast is registered in the manifest file, but it is implicit, which is to the whole system, and so these three broadcasts you stop getting. Any questions here? Yeah. 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 Yeah, but even if you register it in the activity, if your app is in the background for some time, then Android will end up killing the activity, right, to collect memory. Even then you will stop receiving it. So registering for this broadcast is now of no use at all if you want to do these kind of things. Is that clear? Yeah. Yeah. Now I'll come to the alternative. So now if you are not getting these broadcasts, ideally how should the system be designed? Do you have any opinion? If Android was designing the system from scratch, what they should be doing? Yeah, but that is a fair suggestion, but Android went one step further. Android said, what do you want to do? On network connectivity change, if it is a Wi-Fi, I want to upload this photo, or I want to, let's say, download, if I am a newspaper app, Times of India, then let's say at 12 o'clock, I just want to download the latest news feed for today's newspaper. Or if I want to back up some data, then at this interval, I want to back up data and only on Wi-Fi, right? So Android now you can do all of this through job scheduler. So in job scheduler, what you can do is that run this job at this intervals and do whatever you want to do. In job scheduler, you can also add filters like run this job only if Wi-Fi, you are on Wi-Fi. Do you get the point? No, so that Android system decides, and Android system is saying that job scheduler is for things like this, where you want to do things periodically, but you don't want to do it urgently. You get the point? So it is like Android knows that you have a job which is supposed to be run at XX time. Let's say 12 o'clock at night, you are fetching the latest news feed from Times of India app. So then you can specify things like only do it if it is Wi-Fi. Or you can specify things like, so what Android will do is, let's say your phone is idle, then it will not run all the jobs together, not run the job exact that time. What it will do is that if your phone is idle, at some points it will wake up, it will see what are the pending jobs, it will run all of them together, and then it will go back to sleep. So then it has to wake up only once. And if it has to make any HTTP connections, then it has to make that HTTP connection only once. And then run all the jobs and go back to sleep. But you can specify some timeouts, that if I have my job at 12 o'clock, but I want it to be executed by 12:10, so you can do that if you want. So then Android will surely do it before that. Is that clear? Okay. Yeah, so right now Android has killed only 3 broadcasts, right? And there are some other things. I will come to that later in the later part of the talk. So there I will cover GCM also. Okay, yeah. But you can, correct, there are two. Yeah, so for that, Android has introduced a backward compatible API called GCM Network Manager, which will internally call job scheduler for Lollipop onwards, and it has written its own implementation for before Lollipop. Any other question? Yeah. Yeah, so there are 2-3 differences. One thing is that Alarm Manager is meant for scenarios where you have to trigger it at that exact moment, right? Job Scheduler, Android will optimize so that your phone battery consumption is less. Second thing is that Alarm Manager, if the phone reboots, the alarm goes away, right? Jobs are persisted across reboots. Third thing is that Job Scheduler, it is made for the purpose where you don't want alarms. You want jobs to be triggered at some intervals, but you are okay if it is delayed here or there. The purpose itself is different, right? Anything else or should I move forward? Yeah, you can have conditions on the job scheduler. Yeah. Not sure. I don't know. I'll move forward because there are 2, 3 other things that we want to cover. So the next thing about this is that what do you do about new photos? Like if somebody clicked a new photo and you want to take the backup immediately, right? So then for that you were getting a broadcast called new photo. And if that is gone, then what is the alternative there? So with Android N, Android has introduced another API in Job Scheduler, which I'll just show it here. So that thing is called Add Trigger Content URI. So if there is a content provider such as photo, and if that content provider has any change, then this job scheduler will execute. It will get a trigger that this content provider changed, so my job can execute now and upload that photo. Do you get my, is that clear? But again, it's not like the broadcast. It will not trigger immediately and wake up all the apps. Android, based on its own optimization algo or whatever, it will do this thing. Let's say in your, again, in your phone, let's say you have said upload equal to false. I don't want a backup of this photo from this app. So if there are 100 apps and you have allowed backup only for 2, then only those 2 will receive it and 98 jobs will not be triggered. Is that clear? Any other? Okay, I'll move forward. So this was what Android has introduced for job scheduler. Actually, I had written the sample to run it here, but with the preview 3, the emulator is still so unstable that sometimes it is working and sometimes it is not working. So right before the talk started, I was checking and it is not working. We can try, but I guess you can just try the same thing at home. So the next part about battery optimizations that I wanted to cover was one paragraph that Android has written on its website. So if you look at this background optimization page, right, they have said further optimizing your app. And then basically what they are saying here is that in general, implicitly registered broadcast receiver through the XML, they are bad. And any background services are bad for the app. And try to move away from these things. So why are Android saying these things? Because Android is seriously considering killing off all implicit broadcast receivers that are registered through XML, and it is also considering killing off all unbound background services. I'll take these 2 things one by one. So first we will come to the broadcast receivers. So if you have a broadcast receiver registered through XML, and and you are listening for an implicit broadcast which is sent to the whole system, then Android is considering killing off that feature. Now GCM is also, you register it through XML, and again it's but it is implicit, but it is specific to your package. So when Android triggers GCM, right, it sends that broadcast only to your app's package. So that you will still get. But if the broadcast is sent to the whole system and you are listening through the XML, you will stop receiving it. Not with N, but sometime in future. Was that clear? So to test this option, they have given this command. Here, they were missing this word package earlier. They have put it, so they've corrected it. So what happens is that let's say I set the setting to ignore, and I have an emulator, and this emulator is just printing a toast when it receives an incoming SMS. So if you send this thing, I am receiving the SMS, but I am not getting the toast. And if I do allow, and I send the message, I think I need to install this app once. I don't know. Again, it might be a bug or whatever, but right now it's not working. But basically the thing is that Android has given two options on its website. If you say run in background ignore, then it will stop getting any implicitly registered broadcast receivers to your app through the XML. And if you say allow, it will go back to the old feature. But you should start migrating your apps again. And again, you have to do the migration through the job scheduler. So if you are dependent on, let's say, incoming SMSs or any implicit broadcast receiver, instead you have to start depending on the job scheduler. Is that clear? Any question, or should I move to service? Okay. Next thing is, yeah. If our application is running, actually that was my impression also by reading, but when I tried it on the emulator, even if my application is running, if I register it through the XML, manifest XML, then I won't get it. But if I register it through the code, then I'm getting it. But again, from what I remember, when I talked to them, they had said that if your app is in the foreground, you'll even get it through XML. But maybe I'm wrong, or maybe the emulator is buggy, because right now it's still in preview mode. So it's still. Huh. So now again Android is considering killing unbound background services, which let's discuss that topic now. So what are the various ways you can have a service running? What is the difference between bound service and unbound service? Can anyone just say? Correct. So Android has no problems with bound services. It is saying if your activity is running and you have bound to that activity, service lifecycle is tied to activity, it's fine. Second is foreground service. Can anyone here, does anyone know what is a foreground service? So foreground service is when your service is tied to a notification and the user is always notified that the service is on, such as a music app. So you have to say that this service is running and it is tied to this particular notification, such as your play music or anything, right? So there also Android has no problem, because the user knows that your service is running, right? And it is not eating any memory in the background. Now third scenario is when you say start service, but it is not a foreground service and it is not bound. So in that case, what Android is saying is that as soon as your app is going in the background, they are considering that they will stop allowing such services. Because what is the point? What do you get in a service that you don't get anywhere else? What do you guys think? Android says that if you have an unbound service, background service, then whatever it does, you can do it otherwise also through some other components, like static variables or application object. What do you guys think? Because background service, if the app is in the background for, let's say, 10 minutes, Android might kill it, right? But then at the same time, it might kill the app object also and static variables also. So both are equally probable of being killed. So what advantage does a background service give you? It does not give you any advantage, and it is just a heavy component. And even if your activity is in the background, and it is not died. If you could do something there also. So basically what Android is saying is that a background service is not giving you any advantage, but a lot of times people keep running background services and those background services stop. And in fact, if you run a background service in a sticky mode, then Android even tries to restart it for you, right? Which creates a lot of memory issues, but restarted services won't even have the old data, and again, it's just of no use basically, is what Android feel. So they say that just to promote any background activity to be done through job scheduler or those things, they are considering killing this off. Yeah, so right now, again, Android is still thinking. Right now, they have introduced one timeout, which is 1 or 2 minutes. So maybe if perhaps 1 minute job, it is fine. But if it is something which is taking even longer, then you should either not be doing it, or you should be prepared that it will die, that task itself will die. So then you should do it in a jobs service and schedule a job for that. What do you think? Yeah, so what Android is saying is that for that kind of thing, start using a job scheduler. And with job schedulers, the thing is that Android is doing job schedulers in a way that it's uh, it's optimized because Android triggers all the jobs at once. So if your phone is idle, right, it will wake up once and it will trigger all the jobs. Whereas if you do it through, let's say you have an alarm manager and you trigger a background service, then you are eating the phone's battery at wrong times, when it was idle, when it was not supposed to be consumed. So then it is bad for the phone. So that is what Android is recommending. Correct, correct. So then perhaps so many apps should not be triggering so many heavy updates on a phone that is not able to support it, especially when the phone is idle. That is what their philosophy is. I think we'll take other questions offline because we have multi-window to cover. But I can just show you the dose diagram, which can represent how much battery is saved. So I guess we'll skip this diagram also, but if you go to the Android keynote for this thing, the first thing that they did, this is the diagram. So earlier, this is how your phone would be because many apps would just keep triggering things. And now, if your phone is not being used, then it's idle, wakes up, does things, goes back this way. And again, maybe for one individual app, it might be a loss because they cannot do anything whenever they want. But for the user, it is a massive gain. So, yeah, these are the pending jobs that will trigger at every regular intervals. Android has talked about priorities, but I don't remember the details. But you can read about it. Android has mentioned the word priority many times, but I don't remember the details. एक, हाँ. Okay. I think this is what they are doing, but again, there might be more to it, which I am not very familiar with. So there might be something related to priority also. But I remember them saying that there is a cutoff, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. If your job is not complete, they will kill it. And they were thinking of reducing the cutoff, but again, it's just, I don't know. I'll stop here. And if there are any other questions on this topic, we can do it later because we want to cover multi-window also.